City of Medford, and I represent Medford and Malden. And I'm here with Representative Barbara from Somerville and Medford, Representative Godwin from Arlington, Representative Bertram from Dedham, Representative Syback, Representative Smith. Anybody else that I'm missing? Okay, those are all the state representatives. And we're here because we're here for a very, very important reason. The reason is that we want to say, as just this T-shirt says, just drive. And the hands-free bill has been before the legislature for the last 4 to 6 years and has had the opportunity to be passed. But now we need the support of the members of the House of Representatives to get this bill through, get it onto the governor's desk so that we can have what is important, the safe roads in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we know that our neighboring states have hands-free driving, so that if you're on the border in Lowell going up to New Hampshire, you have to put your phone down. If you're down in Amherst going into Connecticut, you have to put your phone down. If you're going up to New York, you have to put your phone down. But that's the important aspect. We're here, and let me introduce to you the advocate who has been one who is passionate about this bill, Emily Stein.
Thank you for coming, everybody. I know this has been a year in the making with working with Rep. Donato to try to have an info session about this topic. So we're going to be just talking about distracted driving in general and the impact it's had on individuals and businesses and on law enforcement. And also specifically talking about the hands-free bill and just how we are ready. We are ready this year. We have a really antiquated bill right now, or sorry, a law, the texting ban, and it's not working. I think everybody sees it around them as you're coming in, as you're walking here. Everybody's on their phone, and we need to just get them to put it down. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I want to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Amy Shipp. She's an internist and a professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. And I first found Dr. Shipp in an article that she wrote in 2010 in the New England Journal of Medicine, just talking about the impact that distracted driving has on healthcare professionals and the role that healthcare professionals need when it comes to distracted driving. So, there you go. So, come on.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Dr. Amy Shipp. I'm an internist, an educator, and an assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, where I've been teaching for almost 25 years. I view distracted driving as a public health emergency. We all know that distracted driving takes many forms, including several that we sort of smile about. People shaving while they drive, people putting on lipstick or mascara, or eating a sandwich. But these activities pale in comparison with the consequences of distracted driving that we are seeing with cell phone use. There are more than 300 million people on the road, more than 85% of whom are using cell phones while driving, and the consequences are catastrophic. Every year, there are more than 400,000 injuries due to distracted driving, and more than, 4,000 deaths. We have the capacity in Massachusetts to change that. When you are distracted on the phone, your reaction time is delayed. When you're moving 2 tons of steel down the road at any speed, a delayed reaction time has catastrophic consequences. No one wants to be on either end of hurting somebody or killing somebody because you're on the phone. We all coped well without cell phones and didn't tell people we'd be 10 minutes late or we just got a cup of coffee. We have the capacity to do this, to save lives. As a physician, I view saving and healing lives as part of my job, but you can support this bill and go home and tell your family and those you loved that you did something to save lives today. Please do so. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
He's the Vice President of Claims at Safety Insurance. And I asked him to come here to share the perspective of the business side, and especially car insurance, and how that has been impacted by distracted driving.
Thanks, Emily. Over the course of several decades, auto accident rates have slowly but steadily been declining. And this has offset slightly increased accident severity, and that has helped to keep car insurance rates relatively stable. That has now all changed dramatically. Across the country, both frequency and severity of auto accident claims are worsening, with the roads becoming increasingly dangerous. We believe in large part because of distracted driving. Based on information from the Property Casualty Insurers Association of America nationally, auto accident deaths have increased 14% over the last 2 years, the biggest increase in over half a century. Last year, 4.6 million people were significantly injured on the roads, a 31% increase over the last 7 years, and a 12.2% increase since 2014. Auto insurance loss costs, the costs of repairing cars, and injuries to people have increased 14% over that time. And it's not just drivers getting injured either. The number of pedestrians killed by cars increased 22% over the last 2 years. The number of bicyclists killed by cars increased 12.2% from 2014 to 2015, suggesting our at-risk population is not just distracted drivers, but also the pedestrians and bicyclists that share the road with them. 3 out of 4 drivers admit to distracted driving, and half admit to sending or reading texts or emails. Distracted driving is a significant and growing problem that needs to be addressed, and we appreciate the legislature's attention to this important matter. Thanks, Emily.
Mary McGuire is the Director of Public and Legislative Affairs from AAA Northeast, and she is well known at the State House for lobbying for traffic safety bills. And thank you for all your work on the hands-free bill for all these years.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you for organizing this. Leader Donato, thank you for organizing this. So great to see so many representatives, senators, staff here today. And hopefully when you say I've been lobbying for traffic safety issues at the State House, hopefully that's been received in a good way. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, great to see all of you here this morning. And as Emily mentioned, AAA has been working very hard to pass a number of traffic safety laws in recent years, including this one, the hands-free cell phone bill, and we're very much committed to passage. We testified on the issue, and I will begin with one caveat. We are very, very supportive of the hands-free cell phone bills. However, we also know at AAA that according to our AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety Research, that hands-free is not a total solution because hands-free is not risk-free. Who in this room has had the experience of driving by the exit to their home and you're lost in conversation on your cell phone and you might even be hands-free? Who's driven by their exit? I know I have many times. So you have to remember that it's not a total solution, but it's a great step in the right direction, and that's why we support these measures. Why do we support them? Because texting has really reached epidemic proportions here in Massachusetts at this point. I drove into Boston this morning. So many people on their phones, especially when traffic slows down or when there's heavy congestion. I think people feel that they have the license at that point to pull out their cell phones to pass the time. What I also see is a lot of people reading their phones. And I think we need to remember that the texting ban of 2010, which was passed as part of the Safe Driving Act, precludes and prohibits reading your cell phone as well as writing, composing, and sending a text message. The problem is because that law allows Massachusetts drivers to continue to dial a phone number, which is many digits and which is really the equivalent of texting and is very distracting, because the law still permits dialing of a phone number, it has become very tough for police to enforce the all-important texting ban. That's why we support these hands-free cell phone bills. They will give police a visual cue, and by the way, you're also a lot safer when you drive with both your hands on the wheel. So, Emily, congratulations to you for all of your great work, and hopefully we can celebrate soon passage of hands-free cell phone bill, which will make all of us safer on the roadways here in the Commonwealth. Thank you so much.
Officer Ken Blass might be known as the busiest cop in New England, as one article quoted him. He's known for writing a number of citations in Framingham for people specifically being distracted while driving. However, more important than the number of citations is the amount of education that I've heard you give to the drivers, because it's not all about slapping them on the wrist with a fine, it's about that education as well. So thank you, Officer Blass, for coming and joining us.
Thanks, Emily. My name is Officer Ken Blass with the Framingham Police Department. I've been there for about 25 years. About 5 years ago, I was assigned to the Traffic Safety Division, and our main target was to target offenders who were breaking laws for any traffic offenses. Well, as a new traffic officer, I was assigned a motorcycle, and I went out in the streets, and I just decided to myself, what's going on out here? What's the biggest problem? Speed, stop signs, you get a few here and there. But what I really noticed was distracted driving. Just about, and we all see it, everybody sees it down the road, and it makes everybody angry. If I had a nickel for everybody who told me, go get those texters, go get those distracted drivers, you're doing a great job. So I went with that, and I started targeting people that were doing it, and it was easy. Quite frankly, I couldn't even keep up with the people. There were so many offenders out there. It'd be one car after another. I'd have one pulled over in busy streets, and I'd see another one coming. They're so distracted, they don't even see the police officer standing there writing a ticket for someone who's distracted driving. So in that sense, and it's very difficult for a police officer to enforce these laws. I had the benefit of riding the motorcycle, which allows me to get in and out of traffic a little easier, a little safer. When you're in a cruiser with another police officer, it slows you down. Trying to catch that person is dangerous. It's just not safe. That's why I've had so much success doing it. It was a lot easier for me to go in and out. And when I stop these people, a high percentage of them don't even know they're doing it. Officer, I wasn't on my phone. Denial is everything. Nobody wants to admit to it. I've had people that would argue more for a $105 citation for texting than a $250 speeding ticket. They'll never admit to texting. They know it's wrong. No one will take accountability for it. If like the hands-free, that will help us easily target people. You can see it a lot easier, and that just alleviates the chance of someone lying. They'll say, I was making a phone call, or I was using my navigation. And to make that phone call, it's 8 seconds, 5 to 8 to 10 seconds to flip through that phone. Well, now with the hands-free, if you're able to see that someone's on the phone, that's the law right there. It just rules out the other chances of anything else. So, thank you.
Something that I wanted to say is, again, something that I'm really focusing on is the safety of law enforcement. When you're out there doing traffic detail, or out there trying to enforce the law, or pulling somebody over, or on the side of the road next to a disabled vehicle, you become a vulnerable road user. And we lost a state trooper several years back, not because of a distracted driver, but they're vulnerable on the side of the road. I had an officer from Westfield named Doug LaValle who sent me a text yesterday. He really wanted to be here, but he had to work, and he was doing traffic detail yesterday. And he said he pulled over a man who was in his 50s or 60s, and he took a right-hand turn, but continued on the wrong side of the road. And he pulled him over and asked what he was doing, and the man had no excuse. He wasn't aware of what he was doing, or that he was on the wrong side of the road. He said he looked into the vehicle and saw an engineer's drawing tablet connected to a post in his middle console, as well as 3 cell phones all plugged in, 1 on his lap and 2 in the passenger seat. He had a pencil in his hand, and he was literally doing work while he took that turn. So this is why we respect the work that you do, and we need to give you the law so you can do your job safely and efficiently. So next, also from Framingham, is a woman named Jillian Kaplan. And Jillian is one of the people that we often don't get to hear their side of the story. She was a pedestrian hit in a crosswalk. And I was connected to Jillian by a piece that the news covered, with you speaking out about what had happened to you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So my name is Jillian Kaplan, and 18 months ago, feels like just yesterday, I was hit by a distracted driver while I was crossing a crosswalk, broad daylight, with my dog. And I had an emergency brain surgery to save my life. I shattered my pelvis, my face, my sacrum, and my sternum. I spent a month in the hospital, 14 weeks out of work, over 2 months in a wheelchair, and I was lonely, I was scared, there was question if I would survive, if I would ever walk again, and like Emily said, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm someone that can live a normal life, was able to get back to work, and you know, prosper, but it's really, really scary for your family, and all of this can be prevented if we have a bill to prevent distracted driving, because the distracted driving has to stop. When you're in a crosswalk in broad daylight, you don't think anything's going to happen to you. You're doing everything that you should be doing. So I ask you to think of me when you think of this law and how important it is to save people like myself and families.
Charlotte Fleetwood is here with the Boston Transportation Department, and I asked Charlotte to talk a little bit about Vision Zero, which Boston adopted a couple years ago, and also to share the work that the City of Boston is doing to not only reduce fatalities on our road, but to educate the public with this message of leave the phone alone.
On behalf of the Commissioner Fiandaca and the City of Boston, I want to say that we really appreciate all the work that everybody's doing here to support hands-free driving, and we do support hands-free driving, a hands-free driving bill. We've gone on record last year as saying we would love to see this pass. In 2015, the city adopted Vision Zero, an initiative to eliminate serious and fatal crashes in the city. We've had too many fatal crashes over the year. We had 22 in 2016, and last year we had 14. All 14 of those people should be alive today. Too many times after a fatal or a serious crash, we hear that the driver didn't see the pedestrian in the road or didn't see the cyclist in the road. And, you know, why is that? You know, I've got to believe that in many cases it's because the driver was distracted. Last year, or over the last 18 months, we worked with the legislature to be able to reduce the default speed limit, and that got a lot of public attention and raised a lot of discussion about the safety and speeding. We think now's the time to tackle distracted driving. Passing legislation regarding this would raise the profile of the issue, generate a lot of discussion, and really help us to change the social norm. It is a public health crisis. We completely agree with that. And we look forward to working with the legislature and everyone who's doing work on this to change that social norm.
So at every workshop and every conference we've been to, there is that personal side to remind everybody that it's not just research and data. Melissa Martin is here. This is not your first time at the State House. And thank you so much for coming to talk about your beautiful daughter.
Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for coming today. This is a subject pretty dear to my heart. My daughter, Amanda, was 17, and she just became a senior at Bay Path. She had goals of becoming a cosmetologist. She had done everything she needed to do right. She planned on opening her own business. She even had a name for it. She was very career-driven. As a parent, I had warned her and had lectures and everything about texting and driving and the distraction, but kids are going to do what they're going to do when they're not around their parents. She crashed into a tree on her way to school. This is the phone that she had. It does not have a scratch on it. She had severe head trauma, and her liver became detached from her body, so they were unable to save her. So I'm on the side of it that my daughter was the texter. She is dead. I'm so grateful she didn't hurt somebody else, because that would be something I don't know that I could ever live with. But there's also the back side of it, the social side of it. I no longer work. I'm unable to work. I love my job. I was a workaholic, spent many hours away from home just to do work, which she complained about, come home, you know, and I was career-driven. Got divorced, my marriage fell apart. My youngest daughter became a teenage mom. So there's the ripple effect into the society, the people that had to see this accident and respond, doctors, the police, the EMTs. It just has a big effect all around, and I really, this bill's a long time coming, and it's been 10 years for my daughter, so I just appreciate everybody's support. Thank you so much.
Tom Branley is here to tell us about Katie, his daughter. It's another beautiful girl with so much potential, lost because of this tragic decision a texting driver made on the road.
My name is Tom Branley. I am from Norwood, and I'm here to let you know what you as a parent may go through if your child is involved in a car crash, whether she be the driver, a passenger, a walker, a pedestrian, a jogger, a bicyclist. Katie and her two friends were walking across the street downtown Norwood where the speed limit is 25 and 30 miles an hour. They were walking one behind the other. They were 2/3 the way across the street when a car came and struck all three. Then we get the phone call that no parent wants to receive. Get to the hospital quick. We got to the hospital and found out that Dawn, her boyfriend, and Katie were in serious shape. The girlfriend, was 2 months pregnant, was okay. She was bruised. They told us they called for a medevac, but the medevac could not come, the helicopter, to get to Mass General. We took the ambulance in, and the ambulance got lost for 5 minutes. We got there. Katie went into the operating room right away after x-rays. A half hour later, they called us into a room, and they told us that she's being operated on, and they wouldn't have operated on, but the brain stem had the lower, and if she couldn't cough, they were not going to operate. She coughed. They operated. They took both sides of her head out, called a craniotomy, and they put that in a freezer to be replaced 5 months later. Some patients they put in the belly. Dom was 10 days in a coma in Brigham and Women's, and then he went 3 weeks to Boston Spalding. Katie spent a month in ICU, not moving, in a coma. A month later, she went to Spalding in Cambridge, and we were there about a day, and Dom had signed himself out of Brigham and Women's, out of Spalding, because Katie wasn't calling him, wasn't visiting. We were there for a little while, and Dom came in one morning at 10 o'clock, stood at the doorway, looked at Katie, just stared at her. For about a minute, he turned around and he left. He come back the next morning. He was there when we were there. He was whispering in her ear. That guy come back 10 months, he was there 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for 14 months, tending to Katie, giving her therapy. We spent 7 months in Cambridge, Spalding, and then we went to North End Spalding, where she was there for 7 months, improving slightly. She improved enough that we went to Charlestown Spalding. State of the art, just opened up. We were there a week after it opened up, the same time as the Boston Marathon victims. She was going to get 3 weeks of therapy, advanced therapy. That's what we were hoping for. She was going to come back to Norwood. so we wouldn't have to make the trek in to Boston every day. She wasn't doing well in the second week, and I told the doctor, and he said, I can't put my thumb on it. That Monday, he said the same thing to him, and he said the same thing back to me. That night, Monday, about 8:30 when we usually leave, I told my wife, Valerie, and Dom, I'll meet them outside. I'm going to play peekaboo with Katie, see if I can get a smile. So I played peekaboo with her at the doorway. Just a sad, brown eyes. I just went in, kissed her on the forehead. I said, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll go out to her ride in a wheelchair. We'd walk around the grounds. It's right on the water. It's a beautiful building, beautiful area. So we left. We got home at 9:30. And my wife we had something to eat. My wife went to bed, and I was worried about her. I called up at 11 o'clock and rang for about a minute. And I said, that's strange. Finally, somebody come on. I said, this is Katie's dad. I want to speak to her nurse. We can't talk to you. Please call back in 20 minutes. I said, wow. I called back in 20 minutes, and it rang and rang and rang. Sorry. We went to bed. 20 minutes later, we got a phone call saying she passed away. We found out through a deposition later that the driver of the car had 8 texts on her phone driving from this very hill, Beacon Hill. She was a second-year law student, the driver of the car. And she had a function downtown Boston. She drove the 25 minutes from Beacon Hill to Norwood with 8 texts on her phone. 4 sending and 4 receiving. Who the hell was driving that car? 8 texts. It happened in Norwood on the main street. It could have happened in your town, on your street. This could have been your child. This is 100% preventable. And thanks to Emily and others to make awareness of this so we can get this law passed. Thank you.
It's always hard hearing families talk, and Jerry Sibley couldn't be here today to talk about his son Jordan, he's I think been dead 10 years. And I just spoke with a grandmother whose 2 grandchildren, aged 1 and 4, were killed in 2014 because their aunt was driving a car and she didn't secure them properly in their car seats. But the driver, she was texting or she was on her phone. They couldn't prove what she was doing. But to speak with her on the phone was so heartbreaking. And I know she wanted to be here too, but I think it was just too hard for her. This is my dad, and this is why I got started with focusing on distracted driving and road safety in general. He was 61, ready to retire. I was 6 months pregnant, and he and my mom were really excited to be grandparents. But a driver decided to program her GPS while driving on the highway instead of focusing on the road, and she drove into him when he was pulled over, securing something on his truck. So my daughter's 6, my son is close to the age that I was in this picture, and I looked up to my dad my whole life like it looks like in this picture. He was just my rock, and he was everything to me. And now my mom has to face the end of her life alone, and I think it's not getting easier for her. And this is my dad. Like I said, he was a carpenter. He was getting ready to retire and become a woodworker. That was his love. When he walked into the studio, he became an artist. And you can see from the smile on his face this was home to him. He was really looking forward to it. So all this potential in the room has been lost because of a really selfish, silly decision to use a phone when driving. I was told that it would be helpful to bring in, because we are encouraging a hands-free bill, I was told that it'd be helpful to bring in just a couple devices. These come with the phone. So all those arguments that, oh, well, Bluetooth is expensive and it's not fair for people of low socioeconomic status to expect them to purchase a $200 Bluetooth. There are these headphones. You can have one earbud in while you drive if you have to accept a call. So that's one option. As you can see the range, I went to Best Buy, somewhere as low as $19.99 on up to $200. There's this little button that you can put into the aux in, and this is for music, but also can receive a hands-free call. You press the button to receive the call. There's also this little headset if people want to come up afterwards and check it out. There's a little button, there's a speaker, and it can plug into either the cigarette lighter or the aux in and the radio. And so the sound is just streamed through your car speaker, your car sound system. Most cars, or all the new cars, seem to have built-in Bluetooth in the stereo entertainment center, so that's another battle that we're gonna have. But again, like Mary said, hands-free is not risk-free, but for people who feel that they do need to stay connected, there are many devices that are affordable that we can get. And there's also the phone mounts as well. Again, I'm sure everybody's seen them in really choice places, like the cars who have them smack in the middle of the windshield. There are places to put those so they are below the windshield and we're not distracted by the phone. So again, Amazon has this SoundBot. If you have a car with a cassette tape, there is a way to connect through your speaker as well, which I thought was kind of cool. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this middle school from Lowell, Pine Arts Middle School. And I met them because they were involved in a program called Generation Citizen, and a couple of you might have been at this event I think it was in December, where it's a program to get students, high school students and middle school students engaged in the civics process. Instead of learning about it, they're actually doing it. So as a class of many students, and there are many issues, especially in this past year, but they chose as a unified class to take on distracted driving as their issue. And I was contacted by them, and I can't even tell you how passionate they are and how much they help to keep me going. Because to have a group of 20 to 25, 13-year-olds start all of these initiatives, I'm going to share with you what they did. They collected 253 signatures in Lowell that they're going to send out to all their 3 state reps. They made phone calls to their state reps. They got, so this is they came to Generation Citizen to display what they had been doing. But they didn't end it there, they're still going. They have a plan to meet with the manager at Market Basket so they can set up a table and get more signatures and more pledges, so adults are pledging to put the phone down. So there's their pledge board. They had 160 pledges at a family night. So the parents or guardians pledge not to text and drive. And they made a quick PSA. I'm not sure, I want to make sure to leave time for questions, so if there's time at the end, I'll run it. And I love this, because they're a K-8 school, they're designing a K-7 curriculum so they can teach the younger kids how to get involved, how to speak up to their parents. So these are, this is the next generation, and I feel like for them, we owe it to them that we make our roads safer, and we owe it to our community. We owe it to Massachusetts. And this is another middle school that got involved, and they again couldn't make it in because it's hard to, get a pass to leave school for a day. But to sum up his quote, the teacher asked, "Why are you guys so passionate about this topic?" And I think a combination of they were personally impacted. An 8th grader in their school was severely injured. But also the fact that it needs to be brought to the House floor. They were really passionate about getting this law passed. So just to close it up, and then I'd love to open it up so people can ask questions of our speakers. But we learned that hands-free is not risk-free. But we also know that we've been trying for the past decade to pass a hands-free bill. And it's time that this legislation gets passed now. It will not only allow police officers and state troopers to do their job at enforcing the current texting ban, but it will also send a stronger message to the public, which we need, that distracted driving is killing people and it's not acceptable. For those who absolutely need to make a call, you saw that we have all these handsets that are available and affordable. And I also want to challenge everybody here. When we go to speak at high schools, or any other organization where we give presentations, I give people a challenge to just put their phone away. Try it for 2 weeks. And if after 2 weeks you've made it without touching your phone when you drive, you're much more likely to go forward into the future and say, you know, this was okay. I enjoyed the drive. I felt more in control. So turn your phone on silent, put it in the back seat. This can be the best Valentine's Day present for your family because in 2 weeks is Valentine's Day. So please spread that challenge around. And thank you everybody for coming. This means a lot.